So it's confirmed, we're getting a new Harry Potter TV show. The series is apparently going to be 1 season per book and it's going to run for around a decade. The idea being the show will be closer to the book's source material and that it's going to bring a new generation into the fandom. But I'll be honest, from where I'm standing there's already a lot of red flags, some green ones, but like Slytherin playing Gryffindor in Quidditch, it's mostly a sea of red flags with just the odd green one dotted in there. So let me talk you through my thoughts and why I think mostly this TV reboot idea is not great. So it's been 12 years since the last movie came out.
I did my waiting! 12 years of it! In Azkaban!
Thanks, Michaela, for making that joke first. But come on, 12 years, surely that means it's time for a reboot, right? Everybody who enjoyed the movies is either dead or so old they can't even remember them. Kids nowadays can't even get their hands on the original movies because they're such antiques, they are lost to the passage of time. If you were to ask a kid from the new up-and-coming generation what Harry Potter is, they won't have a clue. It's like asking them what a floppy disk is. They just glaze over, as though you're talking gobbledygook. So that means it's time to bring this story into the modern times, right? Tell this story to a generation who's never heard it. Come on, everybody and their dog has seen or read Harry Potter. My niece is 10. She loves Harry Potter. She's read the books, she's seen the films, she's got the regular text-only books and also the illustrated version of the books. My girlfriend's nephew is 8 years old and he's obsessed with Cedric Diggory. That's right, he loves the series so much he's not even into one of the main characters. He's picked someone who is only really in one book. That's how much he knows and loves this series. Kids can and are watching the movies and reading the books. This story is not inaccessible to them, so all the chatter of this show bringing this story into a new generation is just PR nonsense, because these generations already know this story. I think what they really mean is this TV show is a new opportunity to remonetize the story from a new generation. New shows, new actors, new props. That means new merchandise opportunities, new Max subscriptions, new accompanying books and soundtracks and games. And that sort of begs the question, how much will this series change? Especially if they're trying to remonetize everything. And I'll get to that later because I don't really think they can afford to change too much. But first, let's talk about the other piece of PR nonsense that these guys are spouting. So we've already found one hole in the big PR push around this announcement. Another big part of the chatter around this reboot is that it will allow the creators to give us something closer to the source material. They're saying it can give us something truer to the books, and I can understand why that's the angle the creators are pushing, because that's always been the main criticism of the films. You know, the acting, considering the main characters were 11 years old and relatively unheard of when they were cast, the acting was great. The CGI holds up too. I mean, sure, there are some shots that don't quite, but for the most part, it doesn't age the movies too much. Mostly it's pretty good and it doesn't pull you out of the immersion of the story. No, the main thing people complain about from the movies has always been how much they left out, particularly of the later books. You know, Winky, Ludo Bagman, the whole Barty Crouch plot from the Goblet of Fire, Voldemort's backstory being established in the Half-Blood Prince. There is a lot I would have liked to have seen in the movies, but that's mostly from the later books. The earlier movies worked with much smaller books, and for the most part they were very true to them. Sure, we have a Peeves missing here and a Death Day party missing there, but in the grand scheme of things, in the first 3 movies, not a whole lot was left out. Which means if we're getting 1 season per book, then the first 3 seasons aren't really going to give us that much more than we got with the movies. And so if the whole selling point of this reboot is that they can be truer to the books, we're not actually going to be getting any big changes until season 4 of the show. And if this show is going to be 7 seasons across 10 years, that's going to average out to us getting 1 new season of TV every year and a half or so, which means that we won't be getting season 4 until around 4.5 years after season 1 launches. If you're selling me this reboot because it's going to have so much more in it from the books, but I have to wait almost 5 years after it launches to actually get any significant changes, to get anything more that I can sink my teeth into that I can't get from the films, it just doesn't feel worth it. Now, there is a chance that they will change things aesthetically so that even the earlier seasons, if the plot isn't that different from the movies, at least it feels quite substantially different. But I don't think they will change much about the aesthetics or the feel of this show. Let me explain why. So Harry Potter is going to be one of the biggest phenomenons fans in modern history to get a complete reboot. We've had continuations and expansions from big franchises like Star Wars with the prequels and the sequels, Lord of the Rings expanding into The Hobbit and the Rings of Power, Jurassic Park even turning into Jurassic World, but nothing this big has really had a full reboot. And I think remaking and retelling that story when it's already so big and established, it's gonna be really tricky. Firstly, the nostalgia and the sentimentalism. Those of us who grew up with the movies, we're so attached to the look and feel of them that any big changes are gonna be very, very polarizing. You wanna change how Hogwarts Castle looks? You wanna give Dumbledore a bunch of tattoos? You wanna make Neville a Scouse bodybuilder? The established fandom is going to be very, very vocal. But I don't think that fans and their objections will be the biggest obstacle for Warner changing things. I actually think the biggest issue they'll have is themselves. The ways that they are already monetizing this franchise sort of feels like it's backed them into a corner. Just think about the aesthetics of the Wizarding World theme parks in Universal. It is so based on the presentation of those places in the movies that if the TV show makes any big changes, it sort of renders those theme park areas kind of redundant. People go to them because they want to experience the Wizarding World they know and love. And if the TV show changes what that looks like, either the theme parks don't appeal to those fans, or they also change the theme parks, which means it no longer appeals to fans of the movies. And since those theme parks are such big cash cows, I just don't think there's any way they risk making them in any way less lucrative, meaning they won't change how they look compared to the movies, but they'll also have them tie into the TV shows. And the only way that can work is if the TV show looks exactly the same as the films. And then we've got the merch. Imagine if they were thinking of changing up how the badges look for the Hogwarts houses, the look and feel of the Hogwarts Express. It makes so much of the already established money-making endeavors from the Harry Potter franchise kinda pointless. And it's not just the visuals either. You really think they're gonna try and reinvent the iconic score of John Williams? There's no way they're throwing out that theme tune, which is why I think they're just not gonna be changing up very much at all. Hell, even the font they used in the announcement teaser is the same font from the films. I mean, look, I know it's still early days, but damn, they're not even trying to make it feel different or original. And so to me, it's just kind of feeling like a lazy attempt at a cash grab. So if it doesn't feel like a natural time for a reboot, and they're not going to be able to give us that much more from the source materials, at least in the earlier seasons, and the look, sound, and feel isn't actually going to change that much, is there anything that might make this series actually some kind of success? Well, sure. So firstly, thank God it is HBO trying to do this. Or Max. Somehow it's different now, I guess. HBO have proven time and time again that they are master storytellers. From The Last of Us to House of the Dragon, they are magnificent character builders and storytellers. If anybody were to be producing this show reboot, I'm glad it's them. Another of the rare green flags around this project is that for years I've been asking for spin-offs and original content. And Fantastic Beasts doesn't count because that was bad and they tried so hard to sort of shoehorn it into like a Dumbledore sequel, prequel thing, and Cursed Child doesn't count because that's basically just fan fiction on a stage. But building this Harry Potter universe in a TV show format, it actually gives us a chance to get some good original spin-off programming, all set in this universe that we love, which honestly is all I want. Specifically, I want a gritty and mature crime drama set in the Wizarding World that follows two Aurors as they try and hunt down and solve a case around a magical serial killer, and I actually break that entire concept of a showdown in this video, and I promise it is a winner of an idea, so why not go and watch that video next.